evening, everybody. Welcome back from Thanksgiving. We're California Free Radio. You might say we're running with a post-skeleton crew like is left on your platter after Thanksgiving. Hope everybody had a marvelous time. Scott, did you?
Hey, I had a great time. Rested and relaxed. 4 days off is always nice.
Indeed, it is. And there's a lot of people that didn't have 4 days off, and we'll be getting to that. But first, as I'm making my comeback after 2 weeks here, I want to remind you we are blasting live on at Netter Mike on X, blasting live on at TaxFighter7, on LinkedIn at Mike Netter, on Facebook. We'll be on Rebuild California in 1 second. You'll find me on the regular feed and our YouTube channel, Outraged. The theme of tonight's show, we're going to back to having guests next week, but Scott and I kind of wanted tonight kind of bring together all of what's going on in California, which is very, very hard to keep up with if you're not paying attention. There's a group of reporters that are paying attention, but tonight's theme, Pay Attention to Us, is going to be It's a Lot Up to You. I, as a citizen, flush out a lot of things that I feed the press. And as I put in Netter News this morning, get fed a lot of things that we put out there. And it's up to us to help uncover what we don't know but can easily be found out. Scott, give me your opening rant on that a little bit. I'm going to do a little bit of technical sharing because our sharing team is still off on vacation right now.
Our sharing team.
We have a sharing team actually behind the
We have a
scenes.
sharing team. Hey, as you know, we are California Free Radio. We're behind the blue curtain. It is a terrible one-party state, and it is not getting any better. And it breeds arrogance, and the arrogance breeds corruption. And we're going to talk about a lot of that corruption tonight. It's coming out from the highest ranks. Governor Newsom's chief of staff, former chief of staff, and a lot of other people tied with Becerra, who is the former
Becerra. By the way, if you're running for office, try, like Scott Piotr, try to have a name that's easy to pronounce. I say this quite often. People like Becerra, look, don't vote for them if you can't pronounce them. Back to you, Scott.
Yeah. My gringo tongue doesn't work that way. I'll tell you, though, he left money in an account, evidently unattended, and some people noticed it and decided to help themselves to it. And we're going to get into the details again tonight. We've gone into them on a previous show. The bottom line, though, is this is a one-party state. This is a very, very blue state. And the arrogance and corruption amongst Democrats, the way that they cheat, the way that they have established this as a sanctuary state, the way that they let fires go on the Palisades and then decide to blame Trump for everything. It wouldn't happen without a cooperative media. And that's where we come in. We're trying to shine the light of day on their scum. And we're calling on you, the audience, to get involved and help us with that. What do you think, Mike?
By the way, Rob Bonta, something else, let's cover that. Because what we're going to do tonight, and much of this is citizens journalism being fed to the mainstream, is tie a little bit of what Bonta's done into possibly what has been done in Newsom's campaign. Back to you, Scott.
We call it Bontagate, and you are going to have to wait to find out how and why we call it that. So we've got a lot of different players in this that we're going to go into tonight. And so you got to have a scorecard. I'll try and keep Mike on point to make sure that we keep all the players straight. But it's an ugly situation. And you're not seeing a lot of it in the press. Surprise, surprise, hey, we're not going to sit there and help, call out our friends on their corruption. If they want to help themselves to a $15,000 Chanel purse and a $170,000 birthday bash in Mexico, we don't really care that much. We're going to concentrate on the big stuff, like open borders and all that good stuff. So again, it's some of these details are just, you and I would never get away with it. We'd be in jail. We would not get, we wouldn't get bond even. We'd be locked up so tight, and so quickly, and they would basically try us in the press before we even made it into a courtroom. Not so when you got Governor Newsom and his staff, former staff.
And
What?
by the way, if you're not familiar out there, Rob Bonta is the Attorney General of California who is supposed to be enforcing the laws. And because he's not doing a lot of his job, in my not so humble opinion, in Scott's, that's why the feds have to step in.
The top cop is not being a very good cop.
He's more like a bad cop than a top cop at this point.
He's more like a joke of an attorney general. He is, he puts out a newsletter every Sunday, and every Sunday I just kind of have to laugh at it. The spin is so bad. But every single time he puts out 3-4 different stories, and 3 or 4 of the stories every week is about how he's suing the Trump administration over this or that. Nothing original, nothing I'm helping the citizens. I mean, he tries to sit there and go, oh, we're watching out. We shut down a Starbucks because they weren't given the proper change. I mean, that kind of stuff. But the reality of it is the guy is a waste of space. He's an empty suit. He's just not a bright guy. And he's there taking up space and wasting taxpayer dollars. What did they allocate for the Trump lawsuits? An extra $40 million or something like that?
And most of that money went to law firms, and we're just starting you off to kind of bring you back here, went to law firms that had contributed to the Bonta and Newsom campaigns. But Scott, do me a favor here while I finish doing what I'm doing, which is trying to get the word out on our show. And our show, by the way, everybody out there, you can help us share. We normally have 3 or 4 people that help us blast this out from my Facebook feed onto the Rebuild California groups, blast it out to the LinkedIn groups and X, and I'm doing it myself tonight. So sharing what we're talking about has a lot to do with what we call citizens journalism. Scott, let's talk about Bonta's list, because this has a little bit to do here. I'm going to take a break from what I'm doing. Everybody understand that the voter rolls in California are public, and you can get them for your county, you could get them from your city, and as long as you use them for political purposes, you can use them to spread the word for our side. If you're getting Rob Bonta's newsletter and wonder why political porn is being dropped in your box, it's because Rob Bonta is using them legally because you're a registered voter and he's an elected official. You have access to them too, and you may not have the technical expertise to do things with them like we do in the Rebuild California team, but you can get them for your county, for your city, and as long as you use them for political purposes, they're legal to use. And the Democrats are catching on to how to use this digital, and it's up to us to catch on with like what we do on California Free Radio, how to get the word out. Scott, dwell on that for a second.
Well, an interesting sidebar on the voter database. It was in the news today about the Trump administration is now suing another 8 states because they're not sharing their voter database. So the Attorney General's Office of the United States, Pam Bondi, her office is charged with making sure that the states comply with the federal voting rules so that we don't have cheating going on, right? And so they've asked the states to provide their voter rolls. Now, granted, they're not just taking the voter rolls that you and I can go pull down from the Secretary of State by signing a little license agreement. They want to have the identifying information that goes along with that, like Social Security numbers and other things like that, or driver's license numbers. And the states are refusing to provide that information, saying that that is private and it's none of the federal government's business. But that's how they have to. I mean, if you got a John Smith, how are they going to tell that John Smith compared to the other John Smith, except by a Social Security number breaking the tie, so to speak? And so
I want to hold on one second. I want to call out the press on that because that's been a little bit misreported. Okay. People with consumer records, Scott, we've talked about this a million times. This is a good way to start off things to understand, can match up that data. So the federal government indeed could match up that data. What the state of California is really saying, we haven't bothered to verify that voter data. That's really what this is about. If they look at Mike Netter and Scott Piotr, well, first off, they look a picture of me, they go, ah! But after they got by the initial shock of seeing my photo, they could easily see I have a social security number. I was born in the United States. I have a driver's license number that is attached. I'm legitimately able to vote. California and the states which are hiding it, the reason they're hiding it is, are you ready for the drum roll, Scott?
Go.
They haven't bothered to match up that data to verify those voters to see if they're legit. And that's really, really, at the end of the day, no members of the Los Angeles Times reporting this. And this indeed is being argued in court today. And what's being argued was actually argued just today. Again, part of this web of corruption that we have in California. But what was being argued today is the privacy of this information. I got news for you, okay? It's not private. I got worse news for you. It's not being verified by the state of California, which is what they really don't want the feds to get from the state and see so they can blame it on the government for intruding in people's lives. Back to you.
I mean, we've talked about it before on the show. There've been lawsuits against the County of LA. County of LA has 120% of the eligible voters registered to vote. So in other words, you're eligible if you're a U.S. citizen and you're between the ages of 18 and whatever. So of all the people that are eligible, they have 120% of that number. So if there's a 10 million eligible, they've got 12 million people registered to vote. They got people that are 140 years old registered to vote. So they haven't cleaned up their voter rolls. And the judge actually, surprisingly, has ordered LA County to clean up their voter roll, and they refuse. They just don't do it. We don't have the budget. We're not going to do it. And you know, what's the judge going to do? How's he going to make them do that? And so that's not atypical. That is the way blue states are run. And does it surprise anybody to know that of the 16 states that are involved in these lawsuits, every single one of them is a blue state? I mean, face it, in an ideal world, we would all agree, right, that we want it to be easy to vote and hard to cheat. Well, the Democrats have made it easy to vote and easy to cheat, and there's a lot of cheating going on. You know, it kind of cracks me up when the press and even people from the conservative side sit there and go, well, they did a recount, and the recount came within like 3 votes out of 3 million cast. So we know that the votes that were cast were, you know, legitimate. And it's kind of like, bull crap. How could they be legitimate? How the heck would you know if they're legitimate? All you know is that they counted them correctly. You don't know if they were cast properly by a legitimate voter. I mean, when they did that Maricopa study after the election in 2020, they found, as they knocked on doors, you know, if you look at a voter roll, and I've knocked on a lot of doors and, you know, walked precincts and things like that a lot, and I'll come up and there'll be 6 names. There'll be 3 couples in effect with 3 different last names. And I'll go to the one that's the newest. And when I knock on the door, are you Mr. Smith? Yeah, that's John and that's Ann. Well, what about this guy and this guy? Oh, we never heard those names before. That's because they voted, or they used to live there perhaps 10 years ago, whatever, and they're still on the voter roll. And they still get a ballot mailed.
Right. And the thing to understand is that with mail-in ballots, and we're getting back to Bonta because the picture behind Scott, and I apologize again for the political porn that he's putting up on the screen. It's interesting and fascinating because you have to wonder, how did California get to this point? Again, you can register, they don't verify who's a citizen. The government of California is dead against voter ID, which a quick advertisement. Are you ready, Scott? There are ballot initiatives right now. Voter ID, I have them in Netter News. Netter News is free. Voter ID, CEO, school choice to break the backs of the unions trying to cover up the sins of the politicians. And we also have Save Prop team by the Howard Jarvis. If not, they will tax you out of existence because their goal, indeed, is to take over the voting, take over your property, do everything they can to satisfy their apparently endless spending needs. And that's, Scott, where I want to get in kind of to a little bit of, I'm not going to call it conspiracy theory, I'm going to call a little bit of conspiracy fact. And I want all of you
Wait
out
a
there.
minute. Is it really a conspiracy if it turns out to be true?
I don't know, and I'm not sure where conspiracy and by the way, I don't know where we started coining conspiracy theory,
Yeah.
because when a group of people collude, and let's think
It's a
about this. Scott,
conspiracy.
could you do me a favor right now? Because I've spent a lot of time here. Can you look up the definition of the word conspiracy? I know Scott has a lot of big screens in front of him. Let's look up the definition of it because let's look at Dana Williamson, for example, where two of her co conspirators, wait, we're not supposed to use that word,
Okay.
that we're guilty.
The very first definition is an agreement to perform together an illegal or wrongful or subversive act.
Okay, would you say that again louder? I'm getting old and hard of hearing. Speak up.
An agreement to perform together an illegal, wrongful, or subversive act.
Okay, so if you go with Dana Williamson and her two co conspirators, two of which pleaded guilty, one today, I would have to agree with you, Mr. Piotr, that it's no longer a theory, it's an actual conspiracy, which two out of three have admitted to. Now, here's what I have, what lies beneath, where I want you to occupy my inbox, which is why I'm wearing the shirt tonight with leads. And let me explain to you something. We know for a fact some of these people have been convicted that there is corruption in California. Okay?
Well, wait a
Dana
minute. Let me write this down. Hold on. Really? There's corruption in California?
Shocking but true. Here's the question that I had talked about on the John Phillips show yesterday. In the latter edition, you'll get that interview in Netter News, bringing up points that enough of my friends in the regular press, shall we say, not the mainstream, aren't even asking. These people who are doing this, the Dana Williamson, Rob Bonta is allegedly an attorney, okay? I'll just float those two names out to you there. They kind of know the ways of the political world. They've been around.
And theoretically, the legal world too, because they're attorneys.
Correct. And when does this corruption lead to desperation? And let me give you a metaphor that I've been using with a lot of people, and I gave this to Scott offline. I want you to think, and many of you in your lives have worked at a retail store and known somebody or a restaurant who, quote, has been dipping into the tip jar because they got some kind of habit to support. Might be their boyfriend, girlfriend, might be a drug habit, might be a shiny car they need to, and they dip into the tip jar knowing they won't get caught because no one really knows what goes into the tip jar. Fair enough, Scott? We don't. People dump money in there.
Stealing
Some
from
of
their fellow employees that they share the tips with.
not
Yes,
saying
okay.
it's right, but let's just say people do that. Problem becomes, as time goes on, for those of you, we have an older audience, that person then starts to dip into the register because they become desperate, knowing that the boss, in this case the FBI, and the general public balances that register every day. So there's a pretty good chance they're going to get caught. So
So
the
they're desperate, right? Because they're taking a
right,
risk where they know they're going to get caught or there's a good chance. Okay.
that corruption is leading to desperation. So let me spin this for you, which again I talked about on KABC yesterday, but I want you to really think about something. Let's start with Rob Bonta. Rob Bonta,
Do I have to?
yeah, we have to because you put the one that put the picture up beside him. I'd say you put the picture of Dane up, but there's no upgrade from there. So there you go. Why not?
So, That's not a good look.
Rob Bonta has to have known, regardless of what he spent the money on with his attorney firm. Scott, give me the name of that attorney firm.
Oh, it's a mouthful. It is
Give me the first two names.
Wilson, Socini, Goodrich, and Rosati.
We're going to call him Wilson Socini, and I want everybody to remember that name. Okay? I want everyone to remember that name, and I'm going to tell you why. Now, Rob Bonta spent $500,000 with Wilson Socini, allegedly, because when he was a state assembly person, he was called in as a witness. Yeah, that's the ticket, as they used to say. The problem is he spent the money or stole from the register that everybody has visibility to out of his campaign funds for attorney general. I don't really give a rodent's posterior who you are. You can't do that. If it was an active campaign for
Well,
assembly,
wait a minute. He's allowed to use the money in that campaign fund for campaign expenses.
but
And so what
not.
you're arguing is that the attorney's fees were not a legitimate campaign expense.
No. It's not an argument. It's the law. If he's been investigated as attorney general for something he did on the attorney general campaign, he can use the attorney general funds for that. But according to even his own admission, he's not being investigated as attorney general. He's been investigated because, in theory, he was a witness for something that happened when he was assemblyman. Now let's talk about that. You're giving me Dana Williamson.
This is Dana Williamson. She looks like she's wearing a bathrobe, and her attorney. I guess today, after she pleaded, I don't know. Maybe the picture wasn't taken today, but
this is different than Dana's attorney. So hold this thought before you confuse me and our studio audience. Okay.
Okay.
Let's go back to Bonta a little bit. Stick with that one first. Bonta is allegedly being investigated for something he witnessed when he was a state assembly person, which has to do with the mayor of Oakland. What's her name? Thao. I said a Phillips show. Help me correct it. I don't remember.
Right. And the politically involved family there that runs all sorts of businesses.
Family,
the Duong
and now
family.
is the time to show a video clip as to why Rob is just a little bit more than a witness. Scott, I sent you one of those video clips this morning that's been documented in what we call the mainstream. Stick with us, folks, because we're going to put this all together. Scott, you got a second to show that clip?
All right. The question is which one do you want to see? I'm going to show the short one first.
A defendant in the bribery and corruption case surrounding former Oakland Mayor Sheng Thao allegedly took a secret, compromising video of California Attorney General Rob Bonta. That is just one of the explosive accusations in a letter obtained by the ABC 7 News I-team that appears to have sped up the FBI investigation. Good evening. I'm Amma Dates.
I'm Dan Ashley. Thanks for joining us here. The I-team's Dan Noyes is investigating all of this and is here with the latest. Dan.
Well, Dan and Amma, this letter may also help to explain why the Attorney General spent $468,000 of campaign contributions on legal fees to help him deal with FBI investigators. I want to emphasize that Rob Bonta has not been charged in this case, and there's no indication he is a suspect. In the letter dated May 9th, 2024 to Attorney General Rob Bonta, Mario Juarez writes about his business partners from Oakland-based California Waste Solutions. I have first-hand knowledge of various criminal activities perpetrated by the Duong family, including money laundering, illegal political donations, falsification of contracts, and exploitation of straw donors. These activities extend to facilitating prostitution for elected officials, including minors.
Rob Bonta, Attorney General, knew far more of what was going on in this investigation with the Duongs than any of us knew.
Stephen Tavares runs the political Substack East Bay Insiders. He first broke news of the Juarez letter, and I obtained it from another source.
The letter shows that Mario was despondent and that he was basically going to get back. Retribution against the Duongs.
Mario Juarez was partners with David and Annie DeWong in Evolutionary Homes, a company that converted shipping containers to housing for the homeless. But Juarez writes that on May 3rd, 2024, the DeWongs locked him out of the showroom on the Oakland waterfront and that they ordered an attack by a group of armed men. Quote, I was threatened with firearms and a knife, assaulted and robbed of personal belongings, including a gold chain and Rolex watch. The I-Team
This is a
obtained
picture of
these
the guy.
photos showing Juarez's injuries, his swollen face and head. He goes on to say,
So this guy is basically tattling on the Duongs, the mayor, and we're not sure what Bonta's role in it is, but he spent $486,000 or so, $468,000 defending himself over it.
Now, well, hold on. Let's just begin with about bad judgment and why Rob Bonta is where he's at today as we connect the dots. Okay. And so here's a couple things I want you to consider. One, most of us who are watching the show and on the right were raised by mom and we raised our kids with fairly good judgment. And these cases are complicated to follow, but let me simplify this for you, Scott. You ready?
Can't wait.
Okay. It involves a foreign guy, in this case, a Vietnamese national, a trash company, recycling company, and hookers, or what we politely call prostitution. Now, Rob Bonta, couple things here to be clear on. You've
Is he
got to
one of
have
the
noticed
hookers?
there was a trash company, a foreign guy who was a little bit slimy, donating to your campaign, and hookers, and they have video. Apparently, we don't know what. Wouldn't your first instinct, as mom would have taught you, is leave the party, okay? You shouldn't be showing up. But let's put that down and assume Rob had bad judgment.
Much less you shouldn't be cashing the check. That's for sure.
Right. You got to know.
Oh, by the way, I'm pretty sure that he refunded all the money that the Duongs gave his campaign
Allegedly.
after he got caught. That is
Allegedly. Now, what that we know of. And here's also what's interesting. Rob Bonta is Attorney General because Becerra, and we're getting to Becerra in a few minutes here, stay with us, took the job at head of Health and Human Services under Biden. So Gavin Newsom picked Rob Bonta to be Attorney General. Then, of course, he became the incumbent and got reelected. Now, nobody lied to me out there, because even if you were in Oakland, barely anybody votes. Who the expletive deleted is Rob Bonta? Why was he picked as Attorney General? I hope I've just established he ain't that bright or he whatever to even hang out with these people. He's not a great attorney, never cashed in any big cases. And of all the gin joints, if you will, of all the attorneys in California, even leftist attorneys that Newsom could have picked, why did he pick Rob Bonta? What is that connection? Should have people scratching heads to begin with, and as what lies beneath is boiling to the surface. Scott, weigh in on that a little bit. I'm going to do one more show.
okay. So if I'm following you, it's kind of like you got a nobody, Bonta. He was appointed to finish the term of Becerra. Becerra was the Attorney General that became the Health and Human Services Secretary under Biden. And as you can see by the natural look of Bonta, he's not exactly somebody you would pick out of a lineup and say, that's my guy. So what does Bonta have on Newsom?
What do they have together, I guess, is the question. Bonta was a pretty new state assembly guy. Even Shirley Weber, who I'm not a fan, who became Secretary of State, was again picked when Padilla went on to the Senate, was a pretty well established political figure in San Diego. Bonta was not very well established. Let's put that down for 1 second and think about that, everyone out there. And again, every time you read an article or see a name, I want you to note it, because I'm going to tell you tonight how you could do your own deep research and feed it to get it out. So
we need more citizen reporters.
100%. And I actually take information with what I do and feed it to the press. So Rob Bonta took money from the cash register, if you will, I'm going to use that metaphor, Scott, where it's publicly audited and disclosed where that money spent, and spent it on supposedly $500,000, which is a lot of money,
Okay.
for a legal something just because he was a witness. There's a lot to see there. Now, what got me thinking a couple days ago is let's flip back to a week or two before that. Dana Williamson, who is Newsom's aide, top aide, who's been around for quite a while in California politics. And
That's Dana next to Newsom.
this is a good time to refresh viewers' memory on Dana Williamson and run one of those short videos, because I'm going to call out the press a little bit here before Scott does this, because as I mentioned on John Phillips yesterday on KABC, there really hasn't been much stories about that till today, till the guy pleaded guilty, to before Thanksgiving. This is a really big story. This is Newsom's closest aide to other people that are involved with Becerra, who was Attorney General before Bonta and was head of Health and Human Services. And to quote Sergeant Schultz from Hogan's Heroes, I know nothing, I see nothing. Come on, dude. How dumb do you expect us to be that nobody was paying attention to the cash register? Do you have that video handy so we can refresh them on Dana Williamson getting indicted? Thank you for Sergeant Schultz.
So this is the one by Ashley, who's done a stellar job up there in Sacramento on this thing. Let's go ahead and play
Chanel
it.
handbag, luxury vacations, and private jets. Newsom's office distanced itself, saying Williamson no longer serves in this administration and emphasizing due process. Two of the alleged co-conspirators have already pled guilty, a Democratic lobbyist and Becerra's former right-hand man. Becerra told the San Francisco Chronicle the accusations of impropriety by a long-serving, trusted advisor are a gut punch. If convicted, Williams...
Federal officials have charged former chief of staff to Governor Gavin Newsom, Dana Williamson, with public corruption, fraud, obstruction of justice, and tax crimes. The 23-count indictment accuses Williamson of conspiring to divert nearly $250,000 from a dormant political campaign to an associate's personal use. The indictment also alleges that Williamson filed false tax returns claiming more than $1 million in business deductions for personal expenses, including a private jet and luxury hotel stays. She is set to make an appearance in a Sacramento federal courthouse later this afternoon.
Okay, let's take a second and reset that for you and explain who Dana Williamson is. It's important to know the players. Think of Newsom as the front guy in the band, if you will. I wouldn't have any idea who Dana Williamson is until she got indicted. You wouldn't have any idea who Rob Bonta is, a low-level assembly person in Oakland, until he got promoted to Attorney General. What's interesting about Dana Williamson, she's been one of the strong arms for the Democrats behind the scene for years. Here's important dots where you as citizens can do what I did yesterday and just help the press, help even the FBI, as funny as that sounds, who I'm sure is already aware of this, ask questions. In the Los Angeles Times article, as it broke about Dana Williamson, they talked to her about being kind of like the mafia boss working for Gavin Newsom, and she'd run a PR firm for years out of Sacramento in effect giving political access. By the way, here's a fun fact. Are you ready, Scott?
Ready?
Her previous job was working as a public relations manager for Pacific Gas and Electric, commonly known as PG&E, whose burned down part of California contributed heavily to Gavin Newsom and certainly was the subject of firepower money from ABC a few years ago, and certainly has received a lot of no bid contracts. She's probably the connection to Newsom and PG&E. And you've got to remember at some point, these people have to get in the room together to do, I'll say, a conspiracy theory, which may not be a theory. Here's what I find a little bit fascinating, and stay with me here. One of the beauties I do love doing this podcast with Scott and Kurt, of course, is on vacation tonight at a place that we're not. It's too bad he didn't go on Dana Wilkerson's tab because she had a really good time. She spent $150,000 on a Mexican vacation. And with all due deference to Mexico, I've been down there a number of times. And when I was 19 for $150,000, I could have bought the Tijuana bull ring, Scott. Doesn't that? I mean, what the hell do you spend 150 grand? Is that indeed her crack habit?
Wait a minute. I'm surprised you can even remember when you were 19. What are you talking about?
Remember coming back broke.
So, she spent $150,000 on a weekend jaunt, and she had to get the money from somewhere. She got the money from this guy's account. This is Becerra.
The PPC loan is the allegation. And then she got in trouble and had to start paying back people. Again, I want to stop you for 1 second, my good friend, because what gets downplayed a bit in this allegation, because it's a lot sexier that she raided Becerra, she's also in trouble with the IRS. And for those of you that don't know what that stands for, well, you probably should pay your taxes, but let's put that down. Okay.
But, we're jumping around to all these different players and all these different names. The bottom line is that they found an account that was dormant, right? This guy, Becerra, got money for a campaign, for his attorney general's campaign, but he wasn't attorney general anymore. He was over there playing cabinet secretary. And so, of course, he didn't give the money away. He didn't give it to another candidate or campaign. He stocked it in his own bank account. It was his campaign bank account. It wasn't his personal bank account, to save it for his next office, whatever that might be. So heaven forbid that these politicians would give the money back because they're no longer running for AG or whatever.
Or contribute to a charity, which they're entitled to do, by the way.
They're unable to do that. So this money's sitting there, and these guys are sitting around going, we need more money to support our habit. Their habit being what? Living large. And so they see this account and they figure out a way to get money out of the account. And they pose one of the guys that pleaded guilty, got his wife to sit there and pretend to be a consultant that worked for Dana Williamson's consulting firm. And they sent a bill to the campaign for, campaign expenses, PR work or whatever, took the money from the campaign, gave it to this gal as I presume salary. And of course, it was like a no-show job. She didn't have to do anything. So anyway, they went way out of their way to funnel money and try to make it look like it belonged. But like you said, Mike, this is a public account. How desperate are they? Anybody can go on the FPPC website and look this up and see this guy's campaign statements and see checks made out to Grace PR or whatever company it was that she was doing work with. And some reporter, it was Ashley, found that, right?
Right. Well, what's interesting too is one of the guys who first got pleaded guilty. And again, I want get your arms wrapping around. These are big power players. Okay. Said, hey, Dana, I'm working for Becerra. He's not paying for and this is a text as a matter of record. It's in the indictments. You should read it. It's fun reading. If you're bored, I'll recite some for you. Becerra isn't paying me enough. He's not paying for my apartment in Washington, D.C. Let's put that down for 1 second, that he couldn't apparently do an expense account. And by the way, he's not paying for my air flights. Okay, that's 400 to 500. That's a lot of money to risk your life and freedom on. Again, a lot we don't see there. But let's go back to Dana Williamson, who ran this PR firm. In her history, one of the things she did as Newsom's chief enforcer, and looking at her, I wouldn't want her showing up at my door. I'll leave it at that.
I'm sorry, she's still wearing a bathrobe. What can I say?
Yeah,
She's out
running
there doing
like
a press
her mom,
conference in her
with an
bathrobe.
expensive bathrobe. There's a company called Activision that I guess does not Call of Duty. I don't want to get it wrong, but one of the big gaming firms. And I happened to see that in this article, they talked about how about a year ago, Activision was being sued by the state government for what we shall now call not an unsafe workplace, but what we used to call sexual harassment for a workplace. What's it called? That was not a friendly workplace to all people, whatever. They were being sued by the state of California Attorney General's office. Activision was a client or former client of Dana Williamson's firm who worked for Gavin Newsom. The case, she apparently pressured the Attorney General, that's Rob Bonta's office. This is complicated. I need you to stay with me tonight. We're doing a complicated show, and I get it.
So confused.
Okay, to ask pressured the Attorney General's office to drop the case, and they did. Activision paid something like a $50 million fine.
Okay, wait a minute. You're talking Dana's firm was the one that pressured
Dana herself made phone calls. Activision had been a client of Dana's firm.
Who was the AG that you're talking about? It's in another state, right?
Banta. No, Bata. Activision
I'm sorry. Did you say Banta?
Yeah. Activision's
Banta?
located in Irvine. Okay. And Banta was the Attorney General when Dana Williamson herself, okay, pressured Rob Bonta or his office, probably Rob Bonta himself, to drop the case against Activision. Now, the question I want everyone to gather out there is when we say the office, these are individuals. Whom did Dana talk to? Now, we're looking for threads in common. So, what I did is I looked at Activision. I first up looked up the attorney who Rob Bonta paid the money for. Who was that attorney, Scott?
It was the same attorney, Wilson Sonsini.
So he paid $500,000 to Wilson Sonsini. Dana Wilkerson, client is Activision.
Williamson.
And lo and behold, and again, this is theory here, but what are the odds? That same attorney firm, which I get it, everybody goes, it's a really big attorney firm. I get it. But that odds of that same attorney firm is the one of their biggest clients was Activision. And as a mergers type attorney firm, they negotiated the acquisition of Activision by Microsoft.
Okay,
Now,
so this attorney,
firm.
Williamson, the firm, Wilson Sononi,
right?
We call him. They were employed by Activision,
correct?
Who was the client of Dana Williamson below,
correct?
And then Dana Williamson sat there and talked to Bonta over here to say, drop the case against Activision. And now Bonta's using the same attorney for whatever his deal is with the Duong family and the trash company and payoffs in Oakland. Where he's supposedly only a witness, right? Who spends $500,000 in attorney's fees if he's just a witness, unless he's also trying to stay out of jail?
And here's the point I really want to make to everybody. Again, Those of you that watch my show, God bless you. I'm amazed at the viewership we have, the Do Netter News. But you get the drift. I'm kind of an ordinary idiot. Well, extraordinary when it comes to the idiot part, but I'm a pretty ordinary person. All
Yeah,
I did,
you and me both.
yes. Well, I wasn't going to go there with Scott, but Scott's an exceptional idiot because he comes on the air with me all the time. Gather what
Glutton
I
for
did.
punishment.
I looked at an article. I Googled Dana Williamson, found articles on her just the other
Wait a
day.
minute. You Googled them?
Right.
Does the
then I
mainstream
asked,
media, does the media not have Google?
I don't know. Again, in defense of some of these reporters, they don't think to look these up. We give them informations. Everybody out there, occupy my inbox.
Okay, so what did you find when you Googled?
I found this article about Activision that said it looks like when the scandal broke, one of the things she did as Newsom's enforcer was pressure the state of California to drop the case against Activision. All right?
Hence our name, Bontagate, right? Because Bonta's using the same attorney that Activision used. And our
Well,
buddy Dana Williamson talked AG Bonta into dropping the case.
hold on, let me let you think like Netter, which I know most of you go, I don't want to do that, but stick with me for 1 second.
That's a
These-
disease I don't have, sorry.
Yes, these groups of people, Bonta, Williamson, Newsom, okay, they grow up in the same food chain and they hang out together. Scott's an architect. He goes to architect conventions. Not many politicians go to architect conventions. I was a tech guy. I would go to tech conventions, different other kinds of business conventions. Those are people that are saying reporters go to reporter conventions and gatherings and cluster. So you have to start to say, how do all these people know each other and what are the connections? So then I simply Googled, and you could ask AI and understand AI, and I want to drive this home. AI will answer, or Grok, the question that you ask it. Okay?
So what question did you ask?
I asked, what a firm did Rob Bonta pay the $500,000 to? And it turned out it was the firm of, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
What firm is it, Scott? That's your cue.
Wilson Sonini and
Okay.
Change.
So then Wilson
Socini.
Sonini. So now we know who that attorney firm is as a matter of public record.
Yeah,
Then
but
I
it's an incestuous little circle.
Hold on. Then I want to go on with my chain of thought. Because I want you can challenge my chain of thought, everybody. And some reporters have, and I get it. They're a really big attorney firm. Okay. But then I Googled, has Wilson Sonoma, blah, 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 ever had Activision as a client? This is the beauty of AI. It's a scraper out there. And all of you can do the same thing. It wasn't like I made deep, dark calls in the middle of the night. All of you could do the same thing. And lo and behold, the same attorney firm that Bonta's paying money to is the same attorney firm that Activision had Activision as a client for years. And that same firm had a link to Dana Williamson, putting pressure on the guy you see up in the screen, Rob Bonta, to drop against Activision. Again,
Okay. So if Bonta did Dana Williamson a favor by dropping the lawsuit against Activision, and the law firm that represented Activision was Wilson Socini, it doesn't sound like Wilson Socini gave our buddy Bonta any good deal. I mean, they charged him $500,000 for attorney's fees. Holy cow. What do you even spend $500,000 on attorneys for if all you are is a witness? I don't get it. I mean, was that a payoff to keep him quiet? What's going on?
That's what nobody knows. And that's exactly what we're trying to figure out here.
So your charge is, everybody listening, go out there and start asking Grok and other guys, other search
They
engines,
start asking
any of these questions, any question you can come
taking
up with.
names in common, because again, you have to understand.
Hey, I would never have thought to ask Grok whether or not the same attorney that our buddy used over here, Bonta, if they have any other ties to Dana Williamson or anybody else, and nor Activision. Okay, how did you connect that? I wouldn't have thought of that. That's thinking outside the box. That's because you don't come into it with a predetermined perspective, which is why you guys out there, citizen journalists, come up with questions. You're going to ask questions that the reporters will never think of asking, because you're just going to go, I wonder if, and you're going to Google it, and the reporters will never bother doing that. They just don't think that way. It's not a linear thought. All right, what else did you discover?
Well, that's number one. Number two, what I want you to roll into is the fact, okay, that again, okay, Rob Bonta, Dana Williamson, Gavin Newsom, all these people, okay, this history that they have together, okay,
Incestuous history, yes. There are a lot of them are related to each other.
okay, look at the people in common, and that's what I want you to do. I want you to look for things in common that are important. And when you go to these stories and you see a name, and when you hear about something like this, you got to start helping us connect the dots. Again, one of the things I want you to understand is these people, corruption has turned to desperation. And it's important to note that corruption has turned to desperation. And what all these corrupt people, allegedly or not, grew up with is not the internet, not AI. And so you out there can give us clues by helping us ask the questions like I did, like you can, like we do. When you look at Netter News and see some of these stories that are reported, okay, it's pretty important to note these stories grow out of some precipitating event that Ashley Zapata had, that somebody fed her the story, that somebody told her to look at this. I said for years, and I said this on the Phillips show, part of the problem with the news, with this public information, is we look at money raised by candidates. Joe Blow, Newsom's raised 10 million, 20 million, 100 million. And when I started in this crazy game 5 years ago, what we didn't look at, or reporters didn't look at, is the expenditure side. Where does the money go? If you really want to break down corruption in politics, we talk about this with the Republican Party, with the consultants and the other people. You have to break down where the money's spent. That's what reporters are starting to take a look at. And again, the SOS portal, the FEC portal, this is public information. You no longer have to go and get a massive amount of records and go through. What I ask each of you to do is take a look at expenditures. They're reported each quarter. They're reported overnight during an election. And look at your disfavored or even favorite politician and look at those expenditures. If you have a question, my email's at the top of my X feed. Email it to us, and we'll look for the things that we don't know to help report and feed the information out. Don't assume that because the FBI are really good investigators, they know what they're seeing a lot of the time. These are individuals. We are the media now. We have the ability to investigate things from our couch.
Hey, do you think first partner Sybil Newsom had anything to do with Dana Williamson? I'm just asking the question. I haven't Googled it.
It's a really good question.
I
Again,
wonder if.
where are the ties? Where are companies in common and things in common, law firms in common? Remember, if it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, talks like a duck, it may be a duck. And you know what rhymes with duck? And that's a lot of what's happening in the state of California. And a lot of what's happening to these politicians that they're getting away with because they grew up with this corruption. It's a way of doing business for them. You've got to ask if you don't know. And the group that watches us and follows us, you're wondering what happens in California, why people don't vote. They don't know. And don't assume, I know I get it, a lot of the mainstream press leans left, etc. But they don't know to look at these things either. It's up to us, the media, to start breaking this. Look, I have a lot of posts that go viral. I have a lot of things that go viral. But the reality is, they might go viral because I knew to look them up and put it out there. And this is a way, too, that you can start getting the word out. And I'm happy. We are happy to let you give this to reporters, recordings, things. Remember, Watergate started with a simple little thing back in the day. They didn't have the internet back then.
Oh, they had Deep Throat.
Right. They had lots that we could do. Scott, help me wrap it up because I'm about to lose my voice tonight, as you know.
Okay, so can't tell a player without the scorecard. So let's recap. So we have Bonta over here that hired the same attorney that the client over here. Let's see if I get this point right. That Dana Williamson hired for activism. Dana Williamson made a personal phone call to our buddy Rob Bonta to get Activision's lawsuit gotten out of. So they have common attorney. Dana Williamson, for whatever the personal flaw was, decided she needed money. And so she absconded with Becerra's money.
Yes, I'm stopping you because, again, yes, we can gather that, Scott, but the question is why? What lies beneath? This is what we've seen bubble to the surface. And the reason I'm getting fired up is my voice is cracking, okay? Think about it. Dana Williamson, who has connections at Activision, who helped as attorney for negotiated Microsoft, she really needed to risk her life and freedom for like $200,000. She needed to take out a PPC loan and cheat the government for like $1 million. Rob Bonta, really, the Attorney General of California, he could have taken that $500,000 out of his account as income, for God's sakes. He's allowed to do that. What the expletive deleted is going on? What is going on that we don't know? And
they haven't uncovered it.
Hang out in a room together. If you don't think this leads back to Gavin Newsom, I got news for you. These people have been in the room with Gavin, and these people have been in the room with the people that have a one-party rule in California with no checks and balances. Occupy my inbox, our inbox, reporters' inboxes with leads. You would be amazed at the amount of breaking stories that come from somebody noticing something. It's really that simple.
Yes, and we've got a bridge. It's the Bay Bridge to sell you if you believe that they aren't connected somehow, some way. And we just have to put the thing together and figure out why they're connected and how. And that's where everybody comes in. Google it, check it out, figure it out. Don't wait for the media because you'll be waiting a long, long time.
And by the way, Story and Netter News, it's an exclusive today about Buckner Island, which Rob Bonta was involved in. I think there might be some connections there. Again, look at things and help us dig. Don't assume there's this massive amount. Remember, by the way, who broke Watergate?
2 reporters.
2
Robert
guys.
Redford.
Woodward and Bernstein. 2 guys. working for the Post, any one of you out there,
Without the internet, without Grok.
correct, could become, and that doesn't count what we missed, could become the next person to have a precipitating moment. But read it and then go, wow, that's cool. Help us take action. We have Grok, we have the internet, we have AI, but it takes what I'm explaining to you. It's not my job. It's the FBI's job to find people and convict them. But it's our job to take our state back.
Yep. And we definitely need to take it away from the hands of these guys.
And we'll
Hey.
be back next week and maybe the week after with some tragic stories to make you understand why we do this. We have an exceptional guest with an exceptional story that I actually was, shall we say, at the precipitating moment that changed her life. And I want you to understand, we fight. We do this for free because literally these people stealing money and abusing power, I want to make these stories real as we go into the holiday season. And you can take action with these petitions. There's lots that you can do. Do the research, get it to us. We'll help get it out. We have the connections. It's your damn state. Help us take it back.
Hey, we found out, or they found these things out. There's 2 guys that have pleaded guilty. They've become state's witnesses. You know, there's a lot of dirt, and these guys are out there trying to save their butt. So we know there's going to be more that's going to come out. Well, we as individuals need to go out and help. And as Mike is trying to keep his voice together, I want to end on a little different note. It was brought up to me this afternoon that there's a viral clip that's gone. That Vanguard University is a Christian university in Costa Mesa. And Vanguard has dechartered or gotten rid of their Turning Point USA club. And this one gal that goes there who started the club did a video basically saying, I don't understand why we're getting rid of it. It's wrong. We shouldn't get rid of it. They're basically saying there are not going to be any political or religious-based clubs at Vanguard University anymore. And my understanding is both Cal Baptist and Point Loma universities, 2 other Christian universities in Southern California, have done the same thing, got rid of Turning Point USA. And I have to say that I couldn't disagree more with this. You know, I think that we are in a lot of our predicament that we have today, especially in California. The reason that we have losers like Bonta and Newsom in office is because good people are not stepping up, and good people are not trying to stop what's going on. And the church, rather than supporting and trying to raise and encourage good people to step up, instead are discouraging them from stepping up, like Vanguard University. Vanguard University is sitting there saying, we don't want Turning Point USA. Well, I've got to tell you, more people have become believers in Christ through Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA than Vanguard University. Not even close, okay? And so for them to sit there and say, oh, that's political, first of all, if it's political, it's doing a lot better job for Christ's kingdom than Vanguard University is. And second of all, if the church or its surrogates like Vanguard and other Christian universities can't show that politics has relevance, or better said, that the Christian faith has relevance even in the political arena, then they should be out of business. They shouldn't be existing. Their God is way too small. This is embarrassing that they think that something that's called political is not something you should be involved with if you're a believer, if you're a Christian. It's just wrong. We could see by Bonta and Newsom, it's very dark. There's no light there. And the only way you're going to get light there is if believers step in and get involved and shine the light of day in there. And so instead of stepping up, encouraging what happened with the phenomenon and is still happening with the phenomenon of Turning Point USA. These Christian universities instead are checking out. And they're not alone. There are a lot of churches that as soon as you mention something that's political, whatever that may be, whether it's illegal immigration, abortion, the death penalty, to sit there and think that the church has nothing valuable to say in those arenas is just wrong. I'm sorry, I'm kind of diverging, but it also kind of goes back to the root of what we were talking about.
It does. And remember that every time they bring up something, and by the way, this is on both sides of the aisle, when there's money involved that becomes exposed, okay, that's where the problem is. Remember, abortion, people that are transvestites, all this stuff, gender, whatever they call it, ideology, has become a big business. And it's the same group of people that travel together that are making big amounts of money, and corruption has turned to desperation. Scott, I'm going to go ahead and before I, okay. So we'll be back.
Well, we'll conclude. Here we are, California Free Radio. We're behind the blue curtain, and we take that seriously. We're trying to save the state. We're still in the state, and we're trying to lift that curtain up and show what's really going on. The single party rule, and the fact that the church and Christian universities are running from the battle rather than joining in the battle is very, very disappointing and very sad. And frankly, we as people, as believers, need to step up in spite of them, or you need to change churches or change schools, and we need to run these schools or these churches out of business. They shouldn't exist. If they're not going to step up and be involved where the fight is going on, and hey, if I was the enemy, if I was the devil, right, and I didn't want the church involved with what was going on, I just call it politics, because the church has already taken themselves out of the game in that arena. So whatever it is, that's political. We don't want to talk about that. Well, that's not the way the Bible talks. That's not the way that Jesus talked when he was here. And we as people need to have that backbone, that foundation, that we're going to be willing to step into the fray, so to speak, and get rid of the corruption that's evident that we're seeing in Bonta, in Newsom, and frankly, in a Democrat-controlled state. And there's a lot of those states across the country. And it's evil, it's wrong. And if good people don't stand up and do something about it, it's going to continue. So we hope you join us in the fight. We hope to see you next week. We'll have a guest. Who's our guest, Mike?
It is a friend of mine who actually, I'm going to leave her name. We're going to put it out. Okay. Next week, but I want to tell you the story's very powerful. You might know her from around politics, but watch our feed, because I was literally part of her life the night something tragic happened. And that something tragic has something to do with the web that the politicians are weaving, and has something to do with current news. And I'm going to leave it at that. God bless. Good night. We'll see you next week. Okay.
We'll see you next week with our guest. And remember, check us out at TaxFighter7 or at Netter Mike on X, and we'll keep you informed.